Welcome to the Improve and Have Fun podcast. My name is Paul V. Perez, and on this podcast I work on improving myself while having fun along the way with the hopes of encouraging you to do the same. And I do so by documenting my life and interests. And in this episode, we have a couple of movie reviews filled with lots of spoilers, just giving you a heads up. One is for Terminator Dark Fate, and the other is for Dr. Sleep. Jason G will be joining me with his review for Dr. Sleep. His review is interesting because I'm giving my review about 2 weeks after the movie's release, but his review is right after the theater, coming straight out of the theater, walking into the streets of Times Square in New York City. Let's go ahead and get into it. Terminator Dark Fate is an intense action thriller, but if you've seen one Terminator movie, you've seen them all. The outliers in this franchise being the first Terminator film having a horror vibe, and Terminator Salvation, which reverses the roles for a time between the machine, played by Sam Worthington, and the human resistance led by John Connor. Dark Fate includes ideas from past films, such as the Rev-9, who's the main antagonist, having a liquid form and the ability to make spears from its body. Grace, played by Mackenzie Davis, is an augmented human I felt was inspired by the human Terminator combo from Salvation. Arnold, being the sympathetic figure coming to the aid of the resistance. Strong female roles, played by Linda Hamilton and actress Natalia Reyes. Sarah Connor does elevate the film. The character's portrayal, I feel, is appropriate to how she'd react living through the experiences of the first two films, such as Dark Fate taking place right after T2. My biggest issue here is Arnold, who plays a T-800 Terminator model named Carl. His backstory made me scratch my head. The T-800 raising a family in a non-physical relationship with the spouse. In all the time the family has been together, didn't the mother or son have any doubts, concerns about Carl's behavior or actions? Even if he was the perfect father, wouldn't that raise questions? Arnold's humor. Some of the comedy beats fall flat. Terminator works when he's playing it straight and not trying to be funny. Future intel. Carl texts Sarah Connor future instances of Terminators appearing in the current timeline. She would then stop them. By film's end, Carl is finished. This leads me to believe that more robots are coming after these ladies. How are Sarah and Danny, who was played by Natalia Reyes, going to handle another Rev-9? If they had this much trouble with one here. I enjoyed this film. The performances and special effects were great, but unfortunately this one's more of a cable/streaming/VOD watch and not must see in the theaters. Time to do something completely different with this franchise? Maybe. This is my review of Dr. Sleep. In late 2018, director Mike Flanagan produced Haunting of Hill House for Netflix. Very enjoyable. Dr. Sleep was his follow-up. After watching this movie, I couldn't help but sense that this seemed better suited for streaming. The vibe and cinematography of Hill House were felt all over Dr. Sleep, except this production was a lot bloodier. Now to what I didn't like. Let's do that first, because what I didn't like is kind of minimal compared to what I did like. Now, what I didn't like was that the film wasn't very scary. I also didn't like that it seemed that Abra, who was one of the protagonists in the film, was a little overpowered. In the first and halfway through the second act, Rose the Hat, the antagonist, the villain in the movie, and her crew felt like a threat. Now, the scene when Bradley, who was played by Jacob Tremblay, is murdered, it was very hard to watch. But once Abra starts to realize even a portion of her abilities, the menace of the True Knot, which is the name of Rose the Hat and her crew, is lessened. Danny Torrance, Abra, and Billy Freeman disposed of its members without much trouble. And also, the Overlook Hotel didn't present Abra with much of a threat, it seemed. And this was a missed opportunity, I feel. Now to what I did like. I liked the names of the members in True Knot, like Barry the Chunk, Apron Annie, and Grandpa Flick. I also enjoyed how Dr. Sleep borrowed minimal footage from The Shining and reshot scenes with new actors such as Danny Torrance's parents. I noticed homages to past directors like Wes Craven and Stanley Kubrick. The scene where Abra gets off a bus and onto Elm Street was cool, or the many transitions between scenes using Kubrick-esque fades. A recurring theme plays out in the movie, that being father figures dying. The primary examples being Danny dealing with his father's death and that tying into his alcohol addiction, Abra's father being killed, Tony, who is Danny's ghost guide it seems, finally transitioning, and in the end the same happening to Danny himself. What does it mean? It's a good topic for conversation. I also like the demonstration of the unique abilities of those who shined, like Danny's ability to read minds, or Snakebite Andy's ability to influence others, Crow Daddy's ability to locate those who shined. Abra seemed to have many skills, but it was never defined. Same with Rose the Hat. Rose's flying scene and her second interaction with Abra was great. The overall soundtrack, borrowing from The Shining, and sound effects were highlights of Dr. Sleep. This was an engaging 2.5-hour movie. I'm writing this review in its second week of release, and it hasn't done well in the box office. Maybe more people would have watched this as a streaming miniseries, which I feel would have fit right in.
This is Jason Giller doing the review for Paul PvP Perez in the house. And I'm going to talk about, Dr. Sleep. We just came out of Dr. Sleep, and I tell you, this movie is awesome. I loved it. This is going to definitely be on my top 5, maybe my top 3. If you're a big fan of The Shining, which I am, you will really like this movie. I'm telling you, this movie is unbelievable. It was so much better than I had ever dreamed it to be. It could happen, it could be. This movie, I read nothing about it. I knew there was a Stephen King sequel about, The Shining called Dr. Sleep, and I chose not to read it, yet. I probably will eventually, but, I wanted to be totally surprised. I wanted everything to be fresh and new, and this movie blew my mind. And I'm telling you, I saw it in the Dolby Theater, and this movie is the perfect movie to see in a Dolby Theater because, it's all about sounds, This sound is, one of the best things about this movie. It's constantly, beating like a heart. It's constantly, doing things that uses all the speakers here and there, and you got all this stuff going on around, and it is really, really well done. I have to see what else this guy's done. The director, Mike Flanagan, he also wrote the screenplay based on the Stephen King novel, Dr. Sleep. So, I had to come outside because the theater was pretty much totally done with people. So I had to get out. I'm a little cold. And anyway, let me get back to the movie. So the movie, of course, we're talking spoilers here because spoilers is what it's all about. Hopefully you've seen this movie, or you don't mind hearing about it. But I recommend seeing it and not knowing anything because it is great. So anyway, when I was young, I saw The Shining on cable TV hundreds of times. I mean, this movie was so mesmerizing. I heard that Stephen King didn't like it because Stanley Kubrick, the director of the original Shining, changed so much of it. And I can see where he's coming from because I'm sure if you're a writer and you write this great story about a haunted hotel, and Stanley Kubrick basically pays for the rights to use your story in your book to make a movie, but then I hear it, a lot of it's changed, and I was like, okay, so a lot's changed. And then Stephen King was not happy, but the movie was really well done. Stanley Kubrick is an amazing director, and it's one of the first movies that uses I think Steadicam. It might be maybe the first movie that maybe uses it extensively. They might have used it for a few other shots, but anyway, let me get back to Dr. Sleep. Dr. Sleep takes place, years later when Danny is older, the boy in the original Shining, and he meets, he's trying to get through life. He has a lot of problems. He's turned to drinking. He's, he's trying to make a new life in another town because his mother was killed, and he just wanted to reinvent himself. But then there are these team of, evil Shine people who go around and kill people and just take their souls and eat their steam and try to live as long as they can like vampires. And they're evil. They're fucking evil, man. So then there's this girl. I think her name was Abra, like abracadabra, but Abra. And, you know, she is like one of the most powerful people who shine out there. And she feels finally what they're doing, because they take this one kid who's walking home from a softball game in the middle of, like, you know, cornfields and stuff. He's walking on the road. They take him, they kill him really brutally. And then she feels this. So does Danny. So eventually Danny and Abra get together, and I tell you, it's such a great movie because it's not only scary, but it's fun, and you know, it makes you really root for the good guys, and you want them to take down these bad ones. That famous New Zealand guy that actually was in the what's his name? What's that movie we saw? Hobbs and Shaw. You know, he played The Rock's brother in the movie when they went to Samoa. He's in it. He's a big part in it. I forgot his name. I have to look that up. But anyway, he's in a million movies. We were just talking about him when we did the review for Hobbs and Shaw. He's really good in it, like he always is in everything. And so anyway, that's the gist of the movie. I don't want to go on forever, but it really, really blew my mind. I did not. This is Dr. Sleep is the sleeper for me of the year. This really was unexpected. So I hope I don't, you know, like build it up and then people see it and they don't like it as much as I, but I absolutely loved it. This is one of the better movies I've seen in a long time. You know, has a very entertaining, moving story. There's lots of good stuff going on, but it builds up to an incredible finale. And you know, there's probably some flaws in there. Yeah, I could pick, I guess, some here and there. And I think it got like in the 70s on the tomato meter. But for me, this movie was great. So anyway, I'm giving it a 9. This movie was fantastic. See it in the Dolby Theater. And yeah, that's about it, I guess. Anyway, I'm cold. I got my hood on. It's chilly out tonight. I had to do this in the street. But anyway, I hope you could use this, Paul, and talk to you later. Until next time, see you at the movies.
Thoughts, comments, do so on the blog at www.improveandhavefun.com. All the ways you can support the podcast, you'll find those in the show notes for this episode. And I wanted to give a big shout out to all the folks who have been saying that they listen. People that I've known from the past, people that I just met. I'm really grateful, and I'm really excited for you to be listening. This is the Improve and Have Fun podcast. Once again, my name is Paul V. Perez, and thank you for listening.